My mom thought the court would hand her the house I bought without her help, until I showed up. And made one move that ended the game without a word. Years ago, I was lucky enough to buy a small starter home during the housing market crash. I got it on my own, no help, no cosigner, just me grinding away and saving up. It wasn't anything fancy, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a little yard, but it was mine. I lived there for almost a decade, just working my way up and focusing on saving for something bigger down the line. Then, fast forward, I meet my now husband, and we eventually decide it's time to upgrade. We pooled our money, got a nice place with more space, and I kept the old house as an extra asset. I figured maybe we'd rent it out at some point or just hang on to it as a backup. Nothing serious, but hey, it's an option, right? Now, here's where my parents come in. They've had a rough go financially, to put it mildly. A couple of years back, they lost their own place to foreclosure, which, I guess, was always kind of hanging over their heads. I can't even count how many times they've moved since I was a kid because they were either renting places they couldn't afford or dealing with landlords that ended up kicking them out. Anyway, after the foreclosure, they're living in this tiny rental and hinting pretty hard that they're tired of bouncing around. That's when they start eyeing my little house, saying it's perfect for them, small, easy to maintain, nothing that'll break their backs or whatever. They're retired too, which doesn't help the situation. My dad's health isn't great, and he finally hung up his work boots after 36 years of a physically demanding job. My mom, well, she's never worked, so they're just scraping by on his retirement, barely covering their essentials. At first, they wanted to live there rent-free. Yeah, you read that right. But I shut that down fast. I mean, come on, I'm not a charity, and even if they're family, there's no way I was going to have them squatting in a house I worked my ass off to own. So, I suggest a fair deal, way below market rent, just to cover the basics. Now, out of nowhere, they get this inheritance, right? It's not a small sum either, easily 6 figures. My mom calls me, all excited, going on about how they've finally caught a break and they're going to pay off my house. I remind her it's not really paying it off because the house was already paid off, but whatever, I go along with it, let them feel good about helping me out. We settle on this arrangement where they use part of the inheritance to prepay their rent, which basically covers a few years up front. I make it crystal clear that this is rent, not some buy-in deal or them buying ownership. They're just tenants. So, we get a lease drawn up. I spell out every single thing in writing to keep things straight. This lease is not just some handshake deal either. It's written, notarized, everything done by the book. They're tenants, plain and simple, and all they need to do is pay taxes and insurance on the place, which comes out to around $350 a month. We agreed on this to keep things simple and so they wouldn't worry about a big monthly payment. But as soon as the lease is signed, it's like my mom's got it in her head that this arrangement means they own the place somehow. She's acting like it's their forever home, telling me how she's going to start decorating, planting gardens, making little improvements. Okay, whatever, no big deal, right? I let it go, thinking it's harmless stuff. The last thing I'm thinking is that she'd get it twisted and think they own the place. But looking back, that was probably my first mistake. Anyway, fast forward a few years, I'm not making a single cent on this place. They're paying peanuts to live there, and honestly, I could be getting a lot more if I rented it out to someone else. But hey, they're family, so whatever. Then, one day, I have to tell them about a tiny increase in rent. I'm talking $3, $3 freaking dollars. Insurance went up a tiny bit, so I figured I'd just let them know the rent would adjust to cover it. It's like less than the cost of a coffee. And that's when my mom completely loses her mind. I call her up and I'm like, hey, just wanted to give you a heads up that insurance went up, so rent's going to go up by $3. It's not much, just something small. And I kid you not, she goes off on me like I just raised it by $300. She's yelling, saying how I'm milking them, calling me greedy, acting like I'm some sort of money-hungry landlord. She's bringing up stuff like, we paid off the mortgage, we deserve to live here without any increases. She's throwing all these wild accusations out of nowhere. I'm floored. I remind her again that they didn't pay off my mortgage, they paid an upfront amount as rent, plain and simple. But she's so deep in her delusions that she actually thinks she's got some claim on the place. She even said, I can't believe you'd do this to your own parents. Like, seriously? And then she hits me with the kicker, she starts threatening to take me to court, saying a judge would side with her because they've put so much into the house. She's talking about all these tiny things she's done, planting flowers, repainting the mailbox, putting in a new garden, things that, honestly, are just cosmetic stuff that she wanted, not things that add value to the house. And she's acting like that means she's entitled to it. At this point, I'm just kind of in shock. I mean, We have a notarized lease. I'm the only one on the deed. There's no gray area here, no legal loophole for her to jump through. It's all in black and white. But she's convinced she's got this massive case against me. She's calling me every name in the book, saying how ungrateful I am, how I'm just taking advantage of her and Dad. My dad, meanwhile, is just standing there, quiet as a mouse, not saying a word to back me up, which, honestly, is pretty standard for him. That call was my wake-up moment. I realized just how far off the deep end she'd gone with this whole thing. She'd convinced herself this was her house, her right, her reward or whatever for putting in some flowers and painting a few walls. It wasn't about $3 anymore, it was about control. In her mind, this was her home now, and I was just the kid who happened to own it on paper. Looking back, maybe I should have seen it coming. There were red flags all along, but I guess I just didn't want to believe my own mother would try to pull something like this. I mean, who does that? Alright, so after that last blowout with my mom over the $3 rent increase, things just kept escalating. I figured she'd cool down after a few days, maybe realize how ridiculous she was being. $3. But no, she's only getting more worked up. She's calling me, texting me, throwing out all these demands. Every message is an axis of guilt trips and anger, and each one more over the top than the last. Stuff like, after everything we've done for you, or, we're the reason you even own that house in the first place. And then she drops the classic, you're trying to put your own parents out on the street. Yep, that's my mom's go-to move when she's losing an argument. She plays the martyr card full force, like she's acting like I'm Scrooge and she's Tiny Tim begging for scraps. I ignore most of it, figuring it's just her blowing off steam. But then my dad jumps into the mess. He's usually the quieter one, just goes along with whatever she says. But now he's calling me up, saying things like, your mom's just stressed, maybe you should hear her out, and, she feels like you're taking advantage of us. At this point, I'm beyond annoyed, so I just tell him straight up, look, if she thinks there's some big issue here, she's welcome to bring it up to a lawyer. Honestly, I was hoping that'd be the end of it, that mentioning a lawyer would make them realize how pointless this whole thing was. But no, instead, my mom takes it as a challenge. Next thing I know, she's telling me she's considering legal options. I almost laughed, considering legal options over a $3 rent increase? Like, come on. But here's where things start getting really out of hand. She demands to see the bills. She wants a full breakdown of every single charge I'm forcing on them. Apparently, she thinks I'm making up numbers to squeeze extra cash out of them. My dad, who's supposed to be the reasonable one, backs her up, saying something like, we just want transparency. They're acting like I'm running a scam operation out of this tiny house. So, fine, I send over copies of the taxes and insurance, showing them exactly what's going on. Nothing hidden, nothing weird, just the regular charges. But apparently, even that's not enough. My mom has all these theories now. She's convinced I'm hiding something, that there's more to the $3 hike. She starts nitpicking every line, acting like she's some sort of tax auditor. I'm getting messages at all hours, random questions about property tax rates, why the insurance went up, and whether I've considered other providers. All of this for $3 freaking. It's like she's forgotten I'm her kid and not some landlord she's trying to take down. Finally, after a few days of her constant questions, I snap. I tell her flat out that I'm not making any money off this deal, that they're living there for a fraction of what I could charge someone else. And then I hit her with the truth, if you don't like the setup, you're welcome to leave. I know it sounds harsh, but I was done being nice. They're acting entitled, treating me like a business enemy when really I'm bending over backward to help them out. Well, that's when things take a turn. My mom goes from accusing me to threatening me. She says, if you want to treat us like renters, fine, but don't expect us to just sit back and do nothing. We're going to show a judge everything we've done for that house. She's talking about the garden she planted, the new mailbox she put up, and a few cosmetic things she's done over the years. In her mind, these little fixes are grounds for claiming ownership or something. Now, this is where my patience finally snaps. I remind her, as calmly as I can, that they signed a lease, and that lease makes them tenants. I'm the only one on the deed, and legally, they don't have any claim to the house. But she's not having it. She starts saying stuff like, we've lived here for years, this is our home, and you're not just going to kick us out. She even says she's willing to go to court to fight for her rights. I can't believe what I'm hearing. My own mother is basically threatening to drag me into court over a house she's renting for pennies. I tell her, look, if you really think you've got a case, go for it. I'll be waiting. Honestly, I was just fed up. I didn't actually think she'd do it. I mean, who does that to their own kid? But then my dad chimes in, trying to play peacemaker. He's like, maybe we can sit down and talk this through, find a compromise. And here's the thing, I'd normally be up for that. I'd be happy to talk it out, to try and fix things. But at this point, they've pushed me too far. They're treating me like I'm some villain when all I did was ask for a tiny adjustment in rent. So, I tell him, there's no compromise here. Either you pay the $3, or you move out. Simple as that. After that call, I'm thinking maybe it's over, maybe they'll finally see how ridiculous they're being. But no, the next day, I get this long-winded message from my mom. It's basically her final argument, listing every single thing they've done to make the house livable. She's going on about how they fixed the shed roof, which was a minor patch job at best, how they planted flowers in the yard, and even how they replaced a hose that had a small leak. She's acting like these little chores entitle her to partial ownership of the place. At this point, I'm sitting there, reading this list, and I just start laughing. It's like she's writing out a list of housework as if it's a down payment. She's genuinely convinced that fixing a leaky hose somehow gives her a stake in the property. It's unreal. But then I get to the end of her message, and it's the kicker. She says, if you don't recognize everything we've done, we'll be forced to take legal action. She's not asking, she's threatening, straight up saying they're going to go to court. I'm blown away. She's really willing to drag me through all this over a measly rent increase. And I know some people might say, why not just drop it? It's only $3. But it's not about the money at this point. It's about the fact that she's acting like the house is hers when it's not. I've got a signed, notarized lease, and everything, and they're just tenants. But my mom's got it in her head that she's entitled to way more than what's fair, and my dad's too whipped to tell her otherwise. So, I decide I'm done playing nice. I sent her a simple message. You're either willing to pay the rent as agreed, or you can leave. No apologies, no compromises. They've made this way more complicated than it needed to be, and I'm not bending anymore. The silence after that was deafening. No texts, no calls, nothing. For a moment, I actually thought they backed off, maybe finally accepted that I wasn't going to budge. But knowing my mom, I knew she was just regrouping, figuring out her next move. And deep down, I had a feeling this wasn't over, not by a long shot. After my last message to them, things went radio silent. And when I say silent, I mean, like, eerily silent. No calls, no angry texts from my mom, nothing. At first, I thought maybe they'd finally taken a step back and realized how nuts this whole situation was. But as the days passed, that gut feeling kicked in. I knew my mom better than that. Silence in her world was just a build-up. She was cooking something up. Sure enough, a few days later, I get a call from my dad. Now, usually, he's the calm one, the voice of reason who tries to keep the peace. But this time, he's on edge, and it doesn't take long for him to spill why he's calling. He wants a sit-down meeting. He's all, let's get together and have a mature discussion about all this, face to face. The way he's talking, it sounds less like a request and more like a demand. Honestly, I'd already had it up to here with both of them, but he sounded desperate, and against my better judgment, I agreed to meet up. I figured, what's the harm? Maybe if they see me in person, I can finally make them understand that all of this is just delusional. So, we set a time to meet at a local diner. I walk in, and right away, I see my parents sitting in a booth. My mom's sitting there with her arms crossed, looking like she's already prepared to tear into me, and my dad's looking at the menu like he's hoping it'll somehow keep him out of whatever's coming. I sit down, say a quick hey, and before I even get comfortable, my mom starts in on me. She's like, I can't believe you're making such a big deal over this, and this is how you treat the people who raised you. I let her rant for a bit, not really saying much, just letting her go. She's laying it on thick, talking about how they've done everything for me and how this house was supposed to be their safe place, especially now that they're older. She's got this dramatic tone going, like she's giving some sort of emotional speech, and I'm just sitting there, trying not to roll my eyes. When she finally stops for a breath, I look at her and just say, Mom, this isn't your house. You signed a lease. You're renting. I'm not your landlord because I want to squeeze you dry, I'm your landlord because it's the only way to keep things fair. Her face goes red, and my dad, who's been quiet up until now, jumps in. He's like, well, can't you understand how she feels? It's a small amount, and she feels like we're being treated like strangers. I get it, he's trying to smooth things over, but it just feels like he's enabling her more. I turn to him and tell him, look, Dad, you agreed to this setup. You both did. This isn't about feelings, it's a legal agreement. My mom isn't having it, though. She switches tactics, starts bringing up all this old baggage from when I was younger, stuff I didn't even realize was still in her head. She's saying things like, do you remember all those times we took care of you, gave up things for you, And how could you forget everything we sacrificed? It's like she's trying to guilt trip me into giving up my own house. And I'll be honest, it hit a nerve. It's not like I don't appreciate what they did, but this is something different. I tell her, as calmly as I can, I'm not going to forget what you did for me, but that doesn't mean you get to treat me like I owe you my house. You're paying next to nothing in rent. I could have rented this place out for 3 or 4 times as much. This isn't about the money, this is about the principle. And that's when she flips again. She starts accusing me of being greedy, telling me I'm money hungry and that I only care about myself. It's like she's got this script in her head, and no matter what I say, she's sticking to it. She even says something like, "You're lucky we're not asking for more, considering all the work we've done." I almost laugh. Work? The garden she planted, the tiny fixes? This is stuff they wanted, not stuff that adds any actual value to the house. I tell her, "Mom, none of that changes the fact that I'm the one who bought this house. I'm the one who paid for it, and I'm the one who's on the deed." And then my dad chimes in again, but this time, he's got this edge to his voice I've never heard before. He goes, "Well, maybe if you're so hung up on the legal side, we should look at this differently. Maybe we should get someone to assess what we've put into the place." I look at him, stunned. My own dad, suggesting they could get some kind of reimbursement for minor cosmetic stuff they wanted in the first place? That's when it hits me just how deep they're in this whole delusion. They actually believe they have some kind of ownership here, that they're entitled to something more just because they've been living there. I lean back and take a deep breath, trying to keep my cool. I look them both in the eyes and say, "You're on the lease. You're tenants. There's nothing more to this." My dad mutters something about fairness, and my mom, of course, goes right back to accusing me of trying to take advantage of them. It's like talking to a brick wall. Finally, I just tell them, "If you're really that unhappy, then move. You're not stuck here. You don't have to pay me rent if you don't want to live in the house, but you can't stay there and act like you own the place. That's not how this works." They both go quiet. My dad's looking at the table, and my mom just glares at me, pure anger in her eyes. She's not used to being told no, especially by me. Growing up, I always tried to make things easier for them, went along with what they wanted just to avoid conflict. But this was too much. We sit there in silence for a good few minutes, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. I can tell they weren't expecting me to hold my ground. I was supposed to fold, to give in and let them have their way. But I'm done with that. This is my house, my property, and they don't get to walk all over me just because they're my parents. Finally, my dad looks up and says, "We'll think about it." No apologies, no recognition of what they're putting me through, just a vague promise to think about it. I nod and say, "Fine." Then I get up, throw a couple of bills on the table for my coffee, and walk out without another word. As I leave, I feel this strange mix of frustration and relief, frustrated that it's come to this, but relieved that, for once, I didn't back down. I didn't let them guilt trip me or make me feel like I owe them more than I already have. In the back of my mind, though, I know this isn't over, not by a long shot. My mom doesn't let go of things easily, and from the way she looked at me, I could tell she was already plotting her next move. But for now, at least, I made it clear where I stand. So, after that intense meeting with my parents, I thought maybe, just maybe, things would cool down a bit. I mean, I laid it all out for them, made it crystal clear this wasn't their house, they were tenants, and that was that. I really thought they'd take a step back, process it, and come to their senses. Wishful thinking, I guess. The silence lasted maybe a week. Then, out of nowhere, my phone lights up with a call from my mom. I'm bracing myself as I pick up, expecting another round of the same arguments. But this time, she sounds different. Her voice is calm, almost too calm, and she asks me to come by the house to go over some things. I don't know why, but that weird tone in her voice had me feeling uneasy, like she was planning something. But I decide to go, thinking maybe we could actually resolve things for once. When I pull up to the house, my dad's sitting on the front steps. He looks nervous, which isn't like him. He barely says hi as I walk up, just kind of nods and gestures for me to go inside. That's when I see my mom standing in the living room with a stack of papers. I'm already on edge, and as soon as I see that stack, I know whatever's coming isn't going to be good. She starts off with this rehearsed speech, saying she understands that it's my house on paper but insists they've put so much into it over the years that they should have some rights too. Then she slides the stack of papers over to me, saying, "These are estimates of everything we've done to make this place livable." I look at the top page, and it's a breakdown of costs she's claiming they invested in the house. There's stuff like landscaping improvements, aka the garden she planted for her own enjoyment, shed repairs, a few nails and shingles on the shed roof, and general maintenance, aka regular house upkeep any tenant would do. She's acting like every dollar she spent on a bag of soil or a can of paint is some kind of equity stake in the house. I can't even process it for a second. It's like she's trying to build a case that they've poured so much into this place that they deserve ownership. I flip through the pages, and every line item is more ridiculous than the last. I'm talking about stuff like new mailbox installation and replaced garden hose. It's like she's trying to tally up every minor thing she's ever bought for the house as if that's proof it's hers. I take a deep breath, trying to stay calm, and I ask, "Mom, what exactly are you trying to do here?" She looks at me, dead serious, and says, "We're just making sure you know the value of everything we've done here in case this goes to court." I almost laugh. I'm standing there, holding this stack of papers full of random home improvements, and she's talking about going to court over it. It's like she's forgotten everything about the lease, the deed, all of it. I try to tell her again, "Mom, you signed a lease. You're tenants. All this stuff you're listing here, none of it gives you any legal claim to the house." But she's already dug in. She's saying stuff like, "A judge would see all the work we've done and realize this isn't just a rental." She's talking like she's some legal expert, saying she's done her research and that she has every right to make these claims. And my dad, he's just sitting there, not saying a word, which tells me he's either in full agreement with her or just doesn't have the guts to tell her she's out of her mind. Finally, I just lay it out. I tell her, "Mom, none of this is going to change the fact that the house is mine. A court isn't going to care about a garden or a mailbox. It's my property." But she's not budging. She says something like, "Well, maybe a judge would see things differently. Maybe they'd agree we deserve some compensation for everything we've done here." Now I realize she's not just looking for ownership, she's fishing for money. She's hoping that by throwing around terms like compensation and value, she can guilt trip me into paying her off or something. It's wild. The same mom who once told me not to expect a dime from them, who made me pay rent as soon as I got a job, is now standing here acting like I owe her something. I put the stack of papers back on the table and tell her, "I'm not giving you any compensation for doing regular tenant stuff. You agreed to the lease, and that's the deal." She's fuming, but I can see that it's finally sinking in that I'm not going to back down. That's when she switches gears again and hits me with, "Well, if that's how you feel, then maybe we should just stop paying rent altogether." I'm stunned. I tell her, "You realize if you don't pay rent, I can evict you, right?" But she's acting like that's exactly what she wants. She's all, "Go ahead, try to evict us. We'll tell the court everything we've done for this place, and they'll see we have a right to stay." At this point, it feels like I'm talking to a stranger. My own mother is practically daring me to kick her out, as if that's somehow going to make her look like the victim and me the villain. It's like she's playing some twisted game of chicken, trying to see if I'll blink first. I look over at my dad, hoping he'll jump in and bring some sanity back into the conversation, but he just shrugs, looking almost apologetic, and mutters something like, "Your mom's been through a lot, just think about it." Think about it? Think about what, exactly? Giving in to her demands, acting like I owe her something for being my tenant? No way. So, I lay it out one final time. I tell them, "If you want to stay here, you stick to the lease. You pay rent, cover the taxes and insurance, and that's it. If you don't want to pay, then you'll have to move." My mom's face goes from anger to something like hurt, like she can't believe her own kid is standing up to her like this. But honestly, I'm done bending over backward to make her happy. I'm done letting her guilt trip me into giving her whatever she wants. I tell them both, "You have until the end of the month to decide. Either you pay what we agreed, or you move out." Then I turn around and walk out, not even waiting for a response. As I get in my car, I feel this weight lift off my shoulders. I'm done letting her manipulate me, done letting her act like this is her house. But at the same time, I know this isn't the end. If anything, I've just made things worse. My mom's the kind of person who doesn't take no lightly, and from the way she looked at me, I know she's not about to let this go. So, yeah, I'm preparing myself for whatever's coming next because, knowing her, it's going to be a fight. But for once, I feel ready to handle it. She might think she's got the upper hand, but I've got the law on my side, and I'm not backing down. Update: after that last showdown, I didn't hear a single word from my parents for a couple of weeks. Honestly, the silence felt almost peaceful. I mean, yeah, part of me knew this was the calm before the storm, but I needed the break. I needed some space to think about everything that had gone down, to remind myself that standing my ground wasn't being cruel, it was just doing what was fair, what was right. But, of course, peace doesn't last long in my family. Out of nowhere, my mom calls me up. This time, there's no yelling, no accusations right off the bat. She sounds almost polite. She tells me she wants to put this behind us, that she's been thinking about it all and she just wants a compromise. I should have known better, but for some reason, I believed her. I guess I just wanted things to go back to normal, to have some kind of peace. So, against my better judgment, I agree to meet her at the house one last time. When I show up, she's waiting on the porch with my dad. The vibe is weird. My mom's standing there, looking serious, while my dad is sitting on the steps, staring off into space like he'd rather be anywhere else. I walk up, nod to both of them, and my mom jumps right in, not wasting a second. "Listen," she says, "we've decided to meet you halfway. Now, right away, this doesn't sit right." Knowing her, meeting halfway usually means me doing all the compromising while she gets what she wants. But I stay quiet, letting her talk. She says she understands that legally the house is mine. She says it like the word legally is an insult, but she feels that emotionally, it's theirs too because of all the time and money they've put into it. And then she hits me with it. She thinks I should gift them partial ownership of the house. I'm standing there, trying to process if I actually heard that right. I'm like, "Are you serious? You want me to give you part of my house?" She nods, dead serious. She's going on about how it would be a gesture of goodwill and would show that I appreciate everything they've done for me over the years. I tell her flat out, "Mom, that's not happening. This house is mine. You're renting, end of story." But she's ready for this, like she's rehearsed her response or something. She says, "Fine, then we're done paying rent. We'll just stay here for free until you figure something out." I just stare at her, half shocked, half furious. I mean, what's there to even say? I'm looking at my dad, hoping he'll step in, but he's just sitting there, not saying a word, typical. So, I tell her, "If you stop paying rent, you'll be breaking the lease, and I'll have to evict you." And she smirks, yes, actually smirks, and says, "You'd really do that to your own parents? You'd put us out on the street?" It's this classic guilt trip, and in the past, it might have worked. But now I'm done with all of it. I tell her, "Yes, if you refuse to pay rent, I'll evict you." I'm done being manipulated. She's furious. She says I'm selfish, that I only think about money, that I'm turning my back on family, the whole 9 yards. But I've heard it all before, and I know it's just her way of trying to get under my skin, to make me feel guilty enough to give in. But this time, I don't feel guilty. I just feel tired. At this point, my dad finally speaks up. He says, "Maybe we should just pay the rent, honey. It's only $3 more." And that's when my mom really loses it. She turns on him, shouting about how he never supports her and how he's too weak to stand up for their rights. It's like watching a train wreck, and I'm just standing there, part of me feeling bad for my dad, but the other part realizing that he's let this go on for way too long. So, I tell them both, "You have until the end of the month to make a decision. Pay the rent or move out. Those are the only options." My mom glares at me, and my dad just looks defeated, but I don't back down. I'm done letting them control the situation. I leave without saying another word, knowing I've probably just set off a whole new level of drama, but also knowing I can't keep playing this game. I head home, half expecting another angry call or text, but there's nothing. Another few days of silence. Then, out of nowhere, I get a text from my mom. She says, "Fine, we'll pay your precious rent, but don't expect us to do anything extra around the house anymore." I roll my eyes. The extra things she's talking about are basic yard work and cleaning, stuff any tenant would handle. But if this is her way of giving in while still feeling like she's won, then fine, I'll take it. So, they grudgingly agree to pay the extra $3, and I think maybe, finally, this nightmare is over. But deep down, I know my mom isn't letting this go. She's got a grudge now, and it's probably just a matter of time before she tries something else. But for now, they're paying, and I have a little bit of peace. The funniest part? After all this, she sends me this long, guilt-trippy text about how family is all that really matters and how I should be grateful for everything they've done for me. She's still trying to guilt-trip me, even when she's the one who practically forced me to threaten eviction. It's like she's living in some alternate reality where she's the victim and I'm the villain for trying to enforce a simple lease agreement. I don't respond. I just let it go. I know if I say anything, it'll just drag things out longer, and I'm exhausted. I'm over it. I've said my piece, I've set my boundaries, and for once, I actually stuck to them. So, yeah, they're still in the house, and I'm still the bad guy in her eyes. But at least now, I know where I stand, and honestly, I feel like I've finally taken back some control over my own life. I'm done with the guilt, the manipulation, all of it. They can keep playing their games if they want, but I'm out. I've got my own life to live, and for once, I'm putting my own peace first. And if they ever bring up the house ownership thing again, well, let's just say I've got a notarized lease, and I'm not afraid to use it.